Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Pankaj Burman, a cybersecurity enthusiast, and this is the second part of IDOR vulnerability. Those who haven't checked out my previous video on IDOR vulnerability yet, I suggest you to check it out first. Content of this video is just for education purpose. Don't try to penetrate any website without any permission. So, this is the Express.js code for my backend server. And as you guys can see that I made few changes from the previous one, and I also added an API. Those who don't know what API is, it is basically a middleware, or you can say that it acts like a middleman between front-end and a backend server. So in this API I created two requests: post to the user's endpoint to store data in the database, and get to the same endpoint to retrieve data from the database. And I also used Swagger to document my APIs. In the previous video I have shown you how we can manipulate query parameter in the URL to exploit IDOR vulnerability to retrieve unauthorized data, but we cannot do the same with our today's website. Let me show you why. First of all, we need to log in, and I already have an credential or an account, so I'm not registering again. And you guys can see that there is no query parameter in the URL, which means we cannot exploit the vulnerability here. We need to find an endpoint to exploit the vulnerability, and to do that we can use a technique called directory brute forcing, and GoBuster and derb like tool are useful for that. I'm also using derb, and here we go. We got few endpoints, from which there is an endpoint called API. So let's check it out. So this is the documentation page of the APIs, which contains two requests. One is for the index page, a GET request, and another GET request to get the user data to this endpoint. It also asks for a query parameter, so let's try it. We are using our username to the URL and execute it, and you can see that it generates a curl request or curl request, curl get request to the URL with the endpoint, with this endpoint, and a query parameter called username with the value gumnami, or the username I have used, and we can see our credential in JSON format, which means we can also use this URL to exploit the vulnerability. Let's try it out, and here we go. You guys can see that there are my credentials. So if I change the value with like admin, we can access the admin credentials also. Let us assume another scenario where the query parameter can be exploited only by the UID value, and we know the email address of the user only. So we can also try something like registering with the same email address to generate a error which can reveal any personal information of the admin, like this. Here we go. It doesn't allow us to access the account, but reveals that the UID already exists, which reveals the UID of the user, which can be used to access the user's data, like this. These are some of the most common techniques used to exploit IDOR vulnerability. And if you guys have any doubt or queries, you can ask me in the comment section. I'm providing you the GitHub repository where I store my website's code. and let me know if you guys want a tutorial to run the web server.